Good afternoon once again. Trust you can hear me loud and clear. If you can hear me, please give me a thumbs up. Perfect. Thank you for joining the ICC Kenya webinar. This webinar is in partnership with the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and we'll be discussing AI in policy and governance. Allow me to take you through what ICC Kenya does in about 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll pass over the session to the moderator, who will take you through the AI policy and governance work. ICC Kenya stands for the International Chamber of Commerce. We are hosted by the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, and our work is to do policy and advocacy on a global level, ensuring that businesses are working correctly in terms of trade. How we do our work? We do our work through various policy commissions. I will not dive deeper into all of them, but I'll share the link to our information where you can get more about ICC Kenya. We have the Environment and Energy Commission that focuses on anything to do with sustainability, ESG, carbon credits, and all that. We have Banking and Finance that fully focuses on banking and finance matters. We have a Customs and Trade Facilitation Commission, Taxation Commission, Arbitration and ADR Commission, and the one that is hosting this webinar today, the Digital Economy Commission, that will be taken over by our Miss Timea. We operate in over 93 countries, and our membership is upwards of 45 million, and we help network and introduce businesses on a global scale. So if you're looking to expand your business, if you're looking to grow your skills in terms of international trade, if you're looking to capacity build, then International Chamber of Commerce is where you should be. I will share the link on the chat just for us to chat later. For now, allow me to pass it over to Ms. Sheila Kadogan, who is a moderator for this session. Sheila, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, Shine. Thank you for that short introduction to ICC. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from wherever you're joining us from, maybe morning, evening. I'm very glad that you can join this webinar today. It's my great pleasure to be moderating this webinar on AI in policy and governance. And the theme of our webinar is really about building responsible frameworks for the digital economy. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we can all agree that we are now in the age of AI, and it's changing so quickly that nobody knows what's going to happen next. So we are faced with questions such as, how does current technology work? How people use it? Will they use it with ill intent? How will it change society, individuals? How will it change the workplace? So as a result of this, we find that the discussion of AI has moved away from the periphery and to the center of policy, market, and academic debate. So as the organizers or co-hosts of this webinar, we hope to achieve a few objectives. Some of the things we want to discuss today are to examine the role of policy and regulatory frameworks in governing AI technologies. We want to discuss how governments and global institutions are approaching AI governance. We want to see or hear from one of our panelists on how regulation can support innovation while protecting the public interest. And of course, to highlight the role of public and private collaboration. So to help us discuss all these issues, I'm joined by eminent panelists, 3 panelists. If Shine, you can kindly beam, there, thank you. We are joined by Madam Mary Kerema, who is the Secretary of ICT, Digital Economy and Emerging Technologies at the Ministry of Information and Digital Economy. She was previously with the ICT Authority and has got a huge mandate currently at the ministry. She's been involved in the development of ICT master plan for the national government, different strategic plans, ICT policies, and has been involved in the deployment of government enterprise systems such as NEMIS, which is the education management system. Maybe you've heard of the government procurement system. And of course, I'm sure all Kenyans have heard about the Citizen platform. So we are very happy to have Madam Kerema with us today. We are also joined by Timea Suto, who's our colleague at ICC headquarters. She has over 10 years experience working in the intersection of public policy and technology. And the headquarters of ICC, she is the lead on digital matters. So we're also happy to have her join us today. We are also joined by another eminent panelist, wakili mwenzangu, Dr. Japheth Odhiambo, who's an advocate of the High Court and currently working at the Communications Authority. And he handles a lot, he's head of research, deputy director of research, and a lot of his work touches on information, communication, technology, law, and regulation. So welcome, panelists. We are hoping that we're going to have a very vibrant discourse, and I would like to encourage all the participants, even as we listen to the presentations, I would encourage you to post your comments or any questions you might have at the chat section. Our aim is to speak for no more than 40 minutes maximum so that we can leave room for conversations or opening up the floor to the audience. So maybe without much further ado, Madam Mary, when we talk about AI, okay, and we speak about the digital economy and maybe how AI can be a tool for economic growth or progress in Kenya. What challenges, or does the government of Kenya foresee any challenges in terms of AI being a key driver? And are there any frameworks that the government is contemplating? Is there a need to have these frameworks? How is Kenya positioning itself? Perhaps you can begin by telling us what is the thinking around AI government. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you could allow me to share my screen.
Yes, yes, you can proceed.
Okay, can see my screen?
No, yes. Yes, you can see it now.
Yeah, so thank you very much. I think my short presentation will just show how we are balancing governance issues to do with policy and also de-risking, because the AI comes in with a lot of risks. So I'll take you through a few slides, and then after that we can engage. So what are the issues why are we speaking about AI? Why are we speaking about policy? It's because expectations have really risen. There is increased citizen expectation for government to operate openly, efficiently, and ethically. There is a lot of complex societal challenges. There is also challenges on delivery of services, and services are becoming more complex each and every time. There is the issue of data, where we are managing vast amounts of data. And lastly, it's about the threats that we are combating with, which are very sophisticated. And these are like security, corruption, misinformation, and disinformation. So the moment we are in, AI is not just another technology wave. It is really redefining power. It is redefining trust and sovereignty. So therefore, we are not regulating a tool. We are shaping a new societal infrastructure. AI is already making decisions about our finances, about our health, about security and identity. And therefore, we cannot bury our heads on the sand. Then the real question is not if we regulate, but who will define the rules that will govern AI. So AI is really moving faster than policy, but more importantly, it is moving faster than our institutions' ability to adapt. And this institution is government included. So this is not just about technology issue. It is a deliberate, and we have to have our discourse around the governance, because it is a governance moment for us to have very, very pertinent questions around this issue of AI. So the real risk is not AI. It is a policy vacuum and absence of governance. So we are not entering an era where AI systems can generate convincing but misleading content at scale. And therefore, it is challenging our trust, it is challenging security, and it is challenging public confidence. So therefore, when policy lags behind technology, and which gives rise to unregulated AI, this leads to algorithm bias at scale. It leads to market dominance by a few global actors who purport to be ahead on AI. It leads to data exploitation without accountability. It also leads to policy lag, which is equal to loss of digital sovereignty. So if we don't design our AI future, we will inherit someone else's. And that's why timely, deliberate, and forward-looking policy action is critical. So Kenya's AI preparedness. We are moving from foundations to readiness. And therefore, the government of Kenya has been deliberate in terms of policy legal foundations that provide the basis for trust. And that is why we've put up data protection frameworks to safeguard our person data. We've put security strategies to address digital threats. And we've put in emerging AI policy, which we are currently developing. And I hope you'll be part and parcel of giving inputs to the already being developed AI policy. We have already done the national AI strategy that was launched last year. So therefore, there is a lot being done around regulation, and even we are having a deliberate review of the government, the entire government policies and regulation and guidelines to see, is it really supporting us in the digital era, in the digital transformation realm? Then in digital infrastructure readiness, we've been able to secure and coordinate systems that are controlled and also ensure secure data flows across government. We are currently doing our digital public infrastructure roadmap, and we are soon launching the government enterprise architecture and interoperability framework. And all these are coming in to make sure that our systems are talking to each other, our systems are secure, our systems are by default secure, inclusive, and also interoperable. The other readiness is around institutional capability to respond to emerging technologies. We are having multi-agency coordination, technical capacity, and skills development, and not only government, but we are doing it even to the citizens. Then the issue of regulatory oversight, evolution. So we will not only have AI implementation, this AI needs to be explainable. It should be able to be audited so that we can hold somebody responsible when the AI misbehaves. The other part is risk and trust safeguards, where we put data governance mechanism, cyber resilience systems, mechanisms to address AI misuse, cyber threats, and AI-driven misinformation. So all these four ensure that our approach to AI is not reactive, but structured, secure, and future ready. And therefore, we are transitioning from a digital economy to an intelligent economy, where AI enhances public service delivery, improves decision-making, and drives economic growth. So we need to rethink how we do our regulations and where risks, because risk is evolving in real time. So therefore, as government, we are deliberate to develop adaptive policy frameworks that can evolve with technology. We are exploring regulatory sandboxes to safely test the AI innovations, and we are strengthening institutional capacity, including technical expertise within government. And lastly, we are enhancing multi-agency coordination to respond to cross-cutting risks such as misinformation and cyber threats. Because in this AI, you can never go at it alone. And therefore, government is deliberate to ensure that we can collaborate with others. So therefore, AI policy cannot be a one-time document. It must be a living document or a living system, because governance must evolve alongside technology. And so therefore, how do we balance innovation and protection, where trust is the foundation of adoption? One, we need to put in safeguards for high-risk AI applications. We need to ensure that our systems can be able to be transparent and accountable. And we need to put mechanisms to ensure the same. We need to have oversight structures that can detect and respond to misuse. And lastly, we need to have risk-based approaches to ensure that innovation continues while protecting citizens, institutions, and markets from harm. And so therefore, for inclusion and collaboration, because I said nobody can go at this alone, so we need to ensure that as we move into areas where we have a lot of challenges around misinformation, cross-border data flows, and system manipulation, we need to engage with the global and regional partners, and we need to align with emerging international AI governance principles. We need to work with the private sector and academia to co-develop solutions, because we need to have sovereignty around solutions. And lastly, we need to ensure that local innovators and MSMEs are part of this ecosystem, because resilience must be built both globally and locally. So therefore, inclusion and collaboration are central to our approach, but also essential for managing emerging risks. So in conclusion, I want to say that ultimately, AI governance is a leadership responsibility. And as government, we've decided and we are deliberate to take lead in this AI, the adoption of AI. And it is about anticipating risks and not just responding to it. And therefore, we must ensure that innovation does not outpace our ability to protect the citizens, safeguard trust, and uphold public interest. And the question is, will we lead with preparedness and purpose? Or will we respond after the risks have materialized? And for us as a government of Kenya, we've decided to take the lead. And therefore, we are saying that AI will not wait for us to be ready. We have chosen to lead so that our country and our citizens will be safe in the AI ecosystem. So why does AI matter in Kenya and the region? The world is now facing a widening divide, and it's not about the divide of connectivity. So we need to thrive, because those who can collaborate with AI intelligence systems will thrive. We need to adhere to exclusion. We need to be life. That technology can really exclude people, because those who cannot collaborate with AI, they will be excluded from opportunities. And therefore, we take lead as government to ensure that our citizens, our government officials are ready so that they are not left behind. So the digital divide or the widening divide is not about technology or issues to do with access. It is a cognitive and economic divide. And therefore, Kenya as a government, we have taken a deliberate move to ensure that policy and governance will make sure that our people will thrive, our people will not be excluded, and that we will not have the divide, or the divide shall not widen. I want to stop there, and thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mary. Thank you for that pithy and excellent presentation. I think it's very heartening for me to see that the government is building expertise in AI and they're trying to create a governance system to respond to the era. I also liked what you said about we are moving from a digital economy to an intelligent economy. I just hope our data will be safe, Madam Mary.
Yes, be safe.
It will be safe. Wonderful. We take it from you then. Maybe are there any questions from the participants? Feel free to raise your hand if you've got a question or to put it in the chat section. Maybe Madam Mary, as you wait to hear what the participants have to say, even as you create the framework, the governance framework, has the government thought about how it can use AI as, I know you said we can't call it a tool, it's a reality, it's a living system, but has it thought about how it can use AI to ensure that our youth are engaged productively as a means of creating economic activity or jobs, for lack of a better word?
Yes, we're doing a lot around engaging the youth. We have the digital hubs where we are engaging the youth in terms of skilling them and making sure that they are attached to jobs, online jobs. We have deliberate programs for the youth, and we are doing platforms that can ensure that we can have real-time feedback and real-time collaboration with the youth. Because I say, when you're doing systems, if you sit and do the system yourself without engaging that person that will be impacted by what you're doing, then you're doing nothing. And therefore, government, as I said, has been deliberate in making sure there is inclusivity, there is collaboration, there is stakeholder engagement. If you have seen in the media, there is a lot of engagement of the public, even as we are doing the AI policy, we are doing the data governance policy, we are doing the data governance strategy, and the youths are not left behind, nor the women, because we say if you leave the women and leave the youth behind, then your country will not grow. So a lot of programs are going on and impacting the youths.
Lovely. Good to hear that. There's a question here for you, Madam, from Patricia Wanjama. Just a minute. The question is, what is the government's view of the Senate-sponsored AI bill? And what is its role in ensuring any AI law aligns to relevant policy frameworks?
I think the Senate is allowed to do the sponsored regulations in the Senate. But the regulations that are done by mainstream government are the ones that are enacted and passed in Parliament. So they are allowed to do those. Mm-hmm. So we are not stopping them. It is in their purview and it is for the Senate. But the one we are doing for government that will go all the way to Parliament is what is going to govern the AI adoption in this country.
Okay. There is a comment here from Emily. She's concerned about how expensive it is to afford training in AI courses. She says she has seen many people maybe with more resources, have the upper hand, and some institutions are taking advantage and overcharging for AI courses, and she feels that many youth will be left out. I don't know what you feel about this, Madam Mary.
Yeah, we have seen that AI courses are really expensive. But for your information, the Ministry of Information, Communication and Digital Economy has set up a center of excellence in Kenya School of Government. And that is a government-owned training center. We are also deliberately changing the curriculum that is being offered for free in the digital hubs. You can start with the Ajira hubs. We are now changing the curriculum to give courses of AI. So please be on the watch. Go into the Ajira portal. You'll be able to get these courses for free. We are also leveraging on our private sector partners. AWS is giving AI courses for free. So if you go to the Ajira portal, you'll be able to be enrolled into those courses. In the Kenya School of Government, we've partnered with Microsoft. They are also giving those courses for free. We have partnered with ISDL that has really brought the cost of AI courses to the lowest. So please be on the watch out, and so that you can really take advantage of this. We have realized it, and government has been deliberate to put these programs in place.
Lovely. We are going to take one question from someone who has raised her hand. Leah, if you could just pose your question, and then we will go to the next panelist. Yeah, go on, Leah.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mary, for that insightful presentation. But I want to look at the government and the generation that we have, the youth that we have. I look at it from a point of they are so good in the technology. How is the government going to empower, or how is the government tapping from this generation and empowering them and taking them into your offices, so that, because they're very good in AI, they're very good in doing their things, how is the government going to harness that kind of resource? Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Leah.
thank you very much. I know we have a very agile youth. In fact, as we are old, we are going to fall off. But the youth are really empowered, and government took note of this. I think it's 7 years ago, and we started a program called Presidential Digital Talent, where we enroll these young people who have finished college. We take them to government, we handhold them, they give us the knowledge, we also connect them to the industry, and most of them have gotten jobs. In fact, it is amazing. We started with 100, we are now doing, I think, 700 every year. So that is how we are engaging the youth and tapping into their knowledge and to their expertise. Number 2, government has also deliberate programs on innovation and entrepreneurship. And the ICT Authority has been incubating these young people and their solutions, and we've been scaling them. I've talked about sandboxes where we are testing this solution, scaling them, and government being the first one to utilize those innovations. And then we are matchmaking and joining them with international companies where they can scale their products. So there are many initiatives that we are tapping into these young people, because the future belongs to these young people. Thank you.
Thank you. I see there's a lady by the name of Gloria Nyambura who's had her hand up for a long time. Gloria, I don't want your hand to ache. If you could quickly pose your question before we move to the next panelist.
Okay, thanks. I hope I'm clear enough.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Kirima. That was a wonderful presentation. I have, well, a question. So what about these children who are called the next generation? You know, you and I, this AI got us in jobs, but these children in high school, they don't know which information is right. And most of them are actually, they are entirely like depending on it. They are given compositions, they just go and paste it there and just get the output. How is the government making sure that they are taken care of so that vision is not taken away from them, creativity is also not taken away from them? Is there like an education that is going to have like to come in the education where they are taught awareness, like not the ethical way of usage of this AI? Thank you.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a very good question and pertinent question, because we need to nurture the young generation, the children who are in primary coming all the way to university. And that is a gap that we have identified. But I want to say this. We are not going to run away from using AI. It is just about being fluent in how we use it, because we are not going to stop the children or even the university using AI to do their thesis, but it is how you are using it and how it can be controlled. And so therefore, there is a deliberate program that is being supported by MasterCard Foundation and UNICEF to bring AI into schools in a more controlled way, and a way that we can audit, that we can continuously get to know how our children are using the AI. Because, you know, the exclusion that we are facing, in fact, the person you should fear is the person who is fluent in using AI, because you will be marginalized, you'll be excluded because of not using technology. So government has been deliberate to bring in the discourse around AI and to make sure that we use AI in a more responsive. And, you know, AI has transitioned. People are now talking about agentic AGI. And I'm almost moved to agentic AGI, because agentic AGI, you are able to control it. You are able to control the API connections. So therefore, if you put it in school, you'll be able to control on what the children are able to use. But key to that is to teach not only the children, the whole citizenry on how to become fluent in using AI and how to use AI responsibly. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Mary Kirima. Thank you for the presentation. It was actually well worth waiting for you. Participants, if you agree, please give her a thumbs up or digital clap online as we welcome our next panelist, Madam Timea Suto from ICC headquarters. As I mentioned earlier, she's the digital lead. And Timea, we are very interested to hear from you. I know you interact with a lot of countries, members of ICC. We are interested to know how other countries are handling the governance of AI. What can we learn from them? Welcome, thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure for me to be part of this conversation and this opportunity to join this important discussion. It's very hard for me to follow Ms. Karima, because she said, I think, 90% of what I wanted to say, so I was trying to see what I can add to that here. But let me maybe start, for those of you who might not know us, with introducing the International Chamber of Commerce, or ICC. ICC is the institutional representative of more than 45 million companies in over 170 countries. And we work to promote international trade, responsible business conduct, and a rules-based global digital economy. Within ICC, The policy department, which is where I sit, plays a central role in shaping global business positions across a wide range of issues, from digital policy to trade, sustainability, banking and finance, and many others. Our colleague Shine shared a few of those just in her introduction. We from the global headquarters in ICC in Paris work very closely with our national committee network, such as the ICC Kenya National Committee. And this collaboration is absolutely fundamental to how we operate on a day-to-day basis. There are really two main sides to this engagement with our network. First is about ensuring that global policies are firmly rooted in local realities. Through our National Committee network, we gather input directly from businesses operating in diverse markets. This includes SMEs, startups, and large companies alike in all different industries. This allows us to understand the practical challenges these companies face, whether it is in infrastructure gaps or access to data or regulatory capacity or skills shortage or whatever it might be. These insights are then fed into what we call our global policy development process, and ensures that the positions we take at the international level, which we hope to take as a global voice of the global economy, that these positions are not abstract, but they're really grounded in the real world experience of our network. This is particularly important in areas like AI, where the implications of policy choices can vary significantly across different economic and social contexts. Secondly, and it's equally important, it is about translating then the global commitments into local implementation. International principles, standards, and policy frameworks only have any sort of impact if they are effectively applied on the ground in the communities, in the cities, in the governments, in the nations. Here, ICC's national committees play a key role as bridges between the global and the local. They help interpret global frameworks in a way that is relevant for their domestic policymakers and businesses. They support the capacity building and awareness raising and facilitate dialogue at the national level. Events like this is a great example for this collaboration. By bringing together Kenyan industry to engage on AI, this discussion helps contextualize the global debates, identify the national priorities, and ensure that local perspectives are then fed back into international policymaking. So in this sense, ICC operates as a two-way channel, bringing local business voices into global policymaking and ensuring that global policy outcomes are then translated into meaningful, actionable steps at the national level. This continuous feedback loop is essential to building policies that are both globally coherent and locally effective. One of the key platforms for this work is the ICC Global Digital Economy Commission that I lead. This commission serves as the focal point for ICC's digital policy engagement and brings together business leaders and experts to develop global positions on issues such as cybersecurity, data governance, connectivity policy, and increasingly, of course, artificial intelligence. You all know very well how AI is a broad and fast evolving field, that it encompasses technologies from robotics to machine learning to natural language processing. You've heard about agentic AI, generative AI, a whole host of technologies. And you've also heard a lot about its transformative impact that is already being felt across sectors from healthcare to agriculture to finance and manufacturing. For Kenya and other economies, AI presents enormous opportunities. You all know this. It can accelerate progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. It can improve access to education through learning tools. It can support farmers with predictive analytics. It can improve how citizens interact with their government, improve how businesses conduct their operations, raise their productivity, optimize energy use, and integrate renewable sources, a myriad of issues that AI can and should help with. However, these benefits are not guaranteed. Without deliberate action, there is a real risk that the benefits of AI will be unevenly distributed, particularly in regions where access to infrastructure, data, and skills remains limited. And in addition to that, alongside the opportunities brought by AI, we've heard this from a previous speaker also, there are important challenges that must be addressed. Questions around transparency, accountability, data governance, safety, inclusion are all central. And this basically boils down to one crucial element, that we need to build trust around the AI systems, because without the trust in the systems, the adoption will stall, and then the gaps, the divides just continue to recreate themselves and deepen. This is why at ICC we have placed a strong focus on the concept of inclusive AI, which ensures that all countries and communities have the means to participate in and benefit from AI. This requires, in our opinion, building the right foundations. So not starting with AI at the very end, but also thinking about in a systems way on reliable infrastructure and connectivity, access to data and compute capacity, digital skills, support for local innovation, and an enabling policy environment. Which brings me to the question of governance. From a global private sector perspective, we believe in a multi-layered four-pillar model that we've developed at ICC for the governance of AI. This consists, as I said, in four pillars. First, the principles and guidelines, which set a global baseline for trustworthy AI. There's a number of examples internationally for such guidelines and principles, from UNESCO to the OECD to the UN General Assembly to the Council of Europe, a number of principles and guidelines. Secondly, regulation, including increasingly prominent risk-based approaches in many different jurisdictions. And we've heard the previous speaker explain how Kenya is thinking about this. Then, thirdly, there are the technical standards, which translate these high-level principles into practical implementation tools. And fourth is the industry self-regulation component, whereby internal governance frameworks and best practices are set up by companies themselves for themselves. The key challenge we see in this framework is really the fragmentation, that different countries are moving at different speeds with different approaches. For businesses, and especially businesses that operate across borders, this creates complexity and uncertainty, which translates into cost. This is why ICC strongly advocates for greater international interoperability and governance. Governance frameworks should be risk-based, proportionate, and flexible enough to evolve with the technology. Overly prescriptive, duplicative regulation risks stifling the innovation, which is particularly important for SMEs and startups to be able to scale up their work. It is also important that policy frameworks support access to data, enable cross-border data flows, and promote open and competitive innovation ecosystems, particularly to support startups and SMEs in emerging markets, as I said. So what are businesses actually doing in interacting with regulation? First, they are investing heavily in responsible AI practices. This includes implementing risk management systems, ensuring human oversight, strengthening data governance, and enhancing transparency around how AI systems are developed and used. Second, many businesses are aligning with international standards to ensure consistency across markets and facilitate compliance in multiple jurisdictions. Third, there is a growing emphasis on transparency and accountability, and many companies are publishing their own AI principles, conducting impact assessments, and engaging with their stakeholders to build the trust that I've been talking about earlier. Importantly, though, businesses are not just reacting to regulation, they are actively helping shape it. They are at the forefront of AI development and deployment. They play a key role in advancing inclusive AI, whether it's by investment in skills and development, or supporting local innovation ecosystems, or developing AI tools in local languages, and partnering with governments, as we've heard before, to expand access to infrastructure and digital services. At the same time, their expertise is essential to ensure that policies are practical, implementable, and responsive to real-world challenges, whether that's related to data access or infrastructure or skills or costs. Their engagement also helps strike the right balance between managing risks and enabling innovation. In addition, business leadership in adopting best practices reinforces accountability and builds trust among users, governments, and society at large. At ICC, we facilitate this engagement by bringing businesses' perspective into international policy discussions, promoting interoperability across frameworks, and supporting the translations of global principles into local implementation. So let me conclude with one final thought. AI has the potential to be a powerful driver of inclusive growth and development in Kenya, across Africa, and in the world. But realizing this potential will require strong collaboration between governments, businesses, and other stakeholders. We need governance frameworks that are not only robust, but also practical and inclusive, frameworks that build trust while enabling innovation, and that are globally coherent to avoid fragmentation. This will also require targeted efforts to close gaps in infrastructure, skills, and access to data so that all businesses, including small and medium enterprises, can participate in and benefit from the AI economy. At ICC, we stand ready to work with Kenyan stakeholders to support this journey. Thank you very much again for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Timea. Thank you very much for that presentation. Very happy you could join us. Participants, if you've got any questions for Timea, as we wait for questions, Timea, I'm sorry I'm a little bit ignorant. But when we talk about interoperability and fragmentation, what exactly are we referring to? Because I'm thinking myself as a business owner, I use several AI tools, maybe that are developed in the States, and I've had no problem at all using them in Kenya. So what here are you talking about, the difficulty in interoperability in AI frameworks? And then I heard you speak a lot about inclusion, some of the words that Madam Mary was talking about, and collaboration. Now, not to be provocative, but I'm also wondering, in a world where global institutions are being dismantled or the global world order and the rule system seems to be basically collapsing before our very eyes, where will this conversation or these guidelines or this international governance system of AI sit? I've heard what you said about, as ICC, you're talking to different international organizations, and you're looking at it as sort of like an OECD model. But is that really feasible in the world we are living in right now? Or are we going to be everything going to be dictated by, capitalist motives?
Here it is. I lost the unmute button. Apologies for that. Yes, so let me take the first question to clarify what I meant by interoperability and fragmentation. I don't mean in the technical sense, I mean in the governance and policy sense. So yes, technology is very smart about moving from one border to the other, adapting, enabling you to use it. What we are less agile about is our governance frameworks, and where I fear the problems of interoperability and fragmentation slowing us down is it's exactly this where you alluded to in your second question, is the internal facing ways of trying to regulate and govern AI. We are over 190 countries in the world. If each of them adopt their own point of view on how to regulate AI, and if that point of view does not interact, is not interoperable with the next country, 2 countries over or over the oceans, then companies who develop those technologies that work the same way in the States as they work in Kenya, that agility, those tools will break down. You will not be able to do that if we continue to erect walls around our own systems and not look at what our neighbors are doing. So that is the fragmentation that I warn against in our policy and governance approaches. We need to think about what we want, where our goals are, push towards those, but also make sure that when we do that, we don't exclude others, and that in the effort to protecting ourselves or fighting the risks that harm us, we are not raising barriers to the good sides of technology, to the opportunities, and to the innovation. So that is, in my opinion, one thing that we need to fight against. When we develop regulations, and this is why it is so important to work with those companies who develop the technologies, because they are sometimes more connected to other companies working on the other side of the world, whether we're looking at their supply chains or talent or outsourcing. They can tell governments where the regulation that they're considering are going in the right path, enabling them to continue to innovate, and when it is that they see certain barriers being raised. So that is the element that I meant about fragmentation on a policy sense and not in the technical sense. Now, in the other side, yes, ideally, what we do at ICC, we bring all the hopes, the fears together, and that's how we develop our policy solutions and recommendations to governments. And yes, our model is the ideal solution. What is it that business would want? How should this go? We are, of course, aware of the realities of the world, and how we move forward from here. I think we should not lose sight of inclusion. Nonetheless, it is not about turning inwards, but I think it's about finding the right partners to work with, and also about being aware of where fragmentation is harmful. Yes, countries might adopt different regulatory approaches, but these should still be compatible enough to allow three main elements, in my opinion. Shared safety standards, right? So the same protection limit should be around each system, so that you trust using what your neighbor has developed, what 3 countries over have developed. So there should be a recognition of the shared safety standards. Secondly, cross-border data flows, right? To be able to build on the data that you have, but also what is being available in other countries, and to be able to pool that data, share that data, especially important for companies that have operations across borders. So you don't create more costs and more complex systems by needing to duplicate, localize, share agreements, work with a bunch of lawyers all the time to make sure that when you share the data, even with your own companies or your own subsidiaries, that you need to always think about contractual agreements, allow this to move a little bit more fluently. And then thirdly, global innovation ecosystems, right? To create aligned systems that help companies interoperate. So for me, those are the 3 things at the minimum that we should think about when we build governance systems. And then, of course, we are able to move this way if we anchor these systems into globally agreed principles. Principles, sometimes people are saying, oh, these are nice to have, these are all idealistic, but if we don't share in those principles, then there's nothing to guide us when we go into implementation. If we don't put those signposts of where we're going, it's very difficult to build the roads that get us there. So it is still very important to agree global principles, engage in the international multilateral system where it is the space for governments to get together and discuss what those principles are, and make sure that those are anchored in the core values of human rights and transparency, accountability, safety, and inclusion. So yeah, maybe this is a bit idealistic, but we at ICC are firm believers in the multilateral rules-based order. We are aware that it probably needs a bit of reform, but the idea of having those and helping us govern is what we firmly believe in, because that is what enables international business to thrive. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Based off that, Madam Kerema, if you are there, I'll be interested to hear from you when Stimea finishes on maybe what principles that she has spoken about have been distilled in the Kenyan policy that are being discussed at the international level. And maybe if you can tell us if the Kenyan government is collaborating with certain countries or companies in when you talked about having interoperability or frameworks that speak to each other, an international kind of governance system. Who is the Kenyan government working with? And for you, Madam Timea, there's a question in the chat. The question is, what are the talks around the future of artificial super intelligence? And at what pace are we moving towards it? That's new to us. What's super intelligence? We're just trying to get our heads around artificial intelligence, leave alone super intelligence. Go on. Did you get the question? Timea, shall I repeat it?
Yes, no, I got the question. Thank you.
Okay.
I thought that you had a different question for Madam Mary before me. Well, I guess I have to say at ICC we do not work on artificial superintelligence yet. We are still trying to make do with artificial intelligence in general. I would assume that what you mean by superintelligence is AI that far exceeds what we humans are capable of right now. Or what AI does is what we do, just faster. The question probably is, what do we do when it actually gets into opportunities that we cannot fathom on our own? And I think the challenge there for us is the same that we've had with AI, with technology before that, with electricity before that, is how do we make sure that everybody has access to it, that everybody understands it, and everybody is able to benefit from it. And in that sense, I think what we may need to make sure is to put the building blocks there that brings us to a level where we are able to interact with each other from the same footing. And that means building those blocks from the infrastructure to the skills to the ways we work with this technology. So getting to superintelligence, yes, we need to talk about it, but we also must not forget that just because there are new things on the horizon, the building blocks need to be there. We don't start building a house from the roof. The foundation needs to be otherwise it will all crumble on top. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Hello, madam. Do you hear
Isaac?
me? Yes,
Yes, I
madam.
can hear you. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, my concern is about AI in relation to digital sovereignty. Because sometimes this AI can fetch informations from different sources without the knowledge of the person or even the government. And mostly this technology are owned by the foreigners, mostly the Western countries. So Africans now, what is the position of Africa, particularly Kenya, that AI can fetch informations without the knowledge of the owner of the data? That's my first part of the question. And then, how is Africa positioning to secure its data without being vulnerable for digital, for the digital sovereignty or digital safety? Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac.
Sheila, this is to me.
I think it is to you if you can handle it.
Happy to do so. Thank you so much. And maybe then other speakers can come in and see how this is working from the local perspective. But one thing I always try to point out when we talk about AI and these questions inevitably comes up, whether we talk to colleagues in Kenya or whether we talk to colleagues in other parts of the world. This is something that everybody is really, really interested in. And I think one very important element that we need to keep in mind is data is not like any other good that we share globally, right? So if I have a cup of water, I drink my cup of water, there's nothing left for you. But if I talk about data, if I use my data or you use my data or I share my data with everybody else, my data is still my data. It hasn't gone anywhere. Nobody has taken it away. Be used and reused in many, many, many different ways and times. And what actually that leaves us with is the value that we extract from that usage of data, bringing us forward together. So it's not about not allowing others to use your data, but enabling you to use your own data and then enabling you, giving you the channels to be able to pool your data with others. And that would help you build the systems or get the results out of that data usage for the reasons that you want. So I think that that is one very important element that we should not lose sight of. It's not finite. It's not something that you give away and you don't have anymore. That's one. Two, we also need to be mindful that that is true, that certain companies, certain areas of the world are more ahead with this technology than others. That is just how the world is. It's not also AI specific. I think in many, many different industries, there are market leaders and others that are trying to catch up. But it's not something that should have us put our hands up and say, okay, well, we will never catch up. The question we need to ask ourselves is how do we create the policy environment in which we can build on what others have done and take it forward or take it in a different direction that suits our national context better, but also how can we develop our own local talent and what are the right policy measures to enable that. It's not necessarily excluding others and hoping that the ones in country will take their place. That's not necessarily the way the world works. But what we can do is how we create the pathways for ingrown talent, imported talent, and things that we don't know yet are able to interact with one another and service what we at the end want to do is the end user and global growth. So I'll leave it at that, but I would very much hope that others on the panel have things to say about this as well.
Yes, thank you, Timea, for that and for your presentation and for reminding me that we actually have another panelist who's been waiting. But before you go, guys, thumbs up for Madam Timea. Claps, digital claps, if you may. Thank you very much. We'll back later if you've got additional questions towards the end. Now, without much further ado, and last but not least, allow me to welcome.
Excuse me. Shall
No, Isaac, we'll talk. We will allow you to speak later. We will have another session later. Let us hear from the other panelists, please, in the interest of time. Thank you. Okay, so please allow me to introduce fellow counsel, Dr. Japhet Odhiambo from the Communications Authority. Dr. Japhet, sorry to keep you waiting. I know you're itching to talk to us about ethics and risk management of AI. As part of your research, what have you found to be the biggest risks associated with AI?
Thank you, Sheila, for that. And I think much of what I would speak to has been said by Mary and Timea. I'll try not to sound too repetitive while at it. So the risks that are associated with AI significantly, I would look at them from two perspectives. Would look at those that are intrinsically sort of associated with AI being just what it is in its own very nature, algorithms and all that. The most obvious, of course, that we may have interacted with here and there when you are using, for example, generative AI, is the issues to do with bias. I think it's something that has received quite some commentary. And the bias here, if you dig into the root cause, one of the main causes usually is around the data that these models are being trained on. So that's usually more or less the obvious. But then deep down, if you start looking at the implications of that, the very nature that AI takes interacting at a secondary level, for example, those models are interacting at a secondary level, then you start dealing with the other risks. Some of them may not have materialized, but they are real risks. For example, you're dealing with risks around degradation of the information environment. Yeah, because there's so much data, and in a data economy, You are dealing with a lot of intertwined interactions between various variables and technologies, of course, because within the data space, you're not just talking about AI. You are easily going to link AI with the Internet of Things, because that is where much of the data interacts. But you're also talking about big data, yeah? Huge chunks generated and transmitted out there. You're talking about the other technologies around transmission. It's going to get more complicated with the power of computing getting better. Yeah, but then those are real risks that arise in terms of biasness in some of those outcomes, in the way those models are trained, the data that they are consuming, and as they learn from the data, much of them now are getting better than they used to be. But also associated with these are risks around cybersecurity, and these are things that keep regulators, for example, give regulators sleepless nights. But I'll try to go into the root of really why it is a problem. At a different level, you are looking at the risks of serious socioeconomic inequalities as consequences around these things. So these are significantly intrinsic risks that, and someone may term them fears, that we ordinarily would have around the AI ecosystem, including the consequences such as what you're dealing with, threats to people feel there's a threat to in the labor market. But at the end of the day, you realize that these are sort of intrinsic to AI. But then where does this problem come from? So the extrinsic risks around this are many, but I'll just mention but a few. One of the extrinsic problems is around the question of speed. I think Mary talked about that quite in detail. The velocity at which artificial intelligence is developing, that velocity keeps creating the pacing problem that we have to deal with as government, and more particularly as a regulator. So the speed in itself is a problem, a huge problem. For the regulators as well, if you look at any jurisdiction, one of the bigger problems they're dealing with, and I was happy when the issue of someone asked the question around the new AI bill. One of the biggest problems, the risks around AI is, what is this that you are regulating? What is the subject matter of regulation? Until we are clear on that as a country, whether we are doing that locally or whether we are collaborating across the region or internationally, until we are very clear on what that is for us in our context, we may not be able to deal with the risks as they come. Because the issue would be, are you dealing with the algorithm? Yeah. And that brings the other problem, and the problem of liability, for example. Who is supposed to be liable within the space of artificial intelligence? Is it the developer when things go wrong? Or is it the person who put, for example, in the case of generative AI, the person who, prompted the tool, or let me call it that, to give a particular output or arrive at a particular outcome. So, or is it the data sports and the data sets and whatever those data sets are, located, if they lead to harm once used through training of those models. So it's a bit of a complicated problem. And then, of course, the bigger headache is also the question of who should regulate. Before you even go into that, the other question that people have to deal with is the question of, do we need to regulate and why? Yeah. Of course, because of those consequences that we've seen, the risks associated with the concerns associated with AI, there's need for intervention at some point, government intervention maybe. The extent, the scope may vary. There is also need to consider a bit more of policy, a lot more policy experimentation around this subject, because it's easier to respond to a new technology by just, for example, banning it. That's the easiest, someone could call it the laziest way of regulating. But you see, this being a reality that is in several use cases across sectors, it's one of those things that you cannot say now we are banning this. You see, so the question would be, who is supposed to deal with it in that context where you have its use cases spread across so many sectors that have different regulators, for example, across different time periods and all that. So these are largely the problems and the risks that are extrinsic to the bigger debate around artificial intelligence. Maybe the response could be a mixture of soft law and hard law, maybe in the long run. But that has to be arrived at through proper, a lot of policy experimentation, a lot of work within sandboxing environments. At CEA, we are operating one, a sandbox environment, which is basically an ecosystem that gives room to try some of these things on real consumers while mitigating against potential harm. But it also helps the regulator to learn from, the technology before it is deployed at scale. So it's a good platform, a lot of live, living lab approaches to legislation would be very useful in this space, and a lot of also, foresighting, a lot of strategic foresighting, building scenarios into how the future is supposed to look like for these risks. Which risks are we supposed to sort out within which time horizons, and in what sense do we need to sort them out? We may even realize that at the end of the day, what we are really considering regulating may not necessarily even require regulation at all or intervention at that level, because it can be dealt with by the business taking up, for example, self-regulatory approaches to doing these things, just building in risk mitigation measures in the process of developing, adopting, and of course using artificial intelligence through a number of programs, including, I think, what Tinea mentioned on responsible AI programs. So the risks are many. They're bound. Some of them materialize every other time. I think you've interacted with a lot of synthetic media. Some of it, of course, some of the platforms on which this media is put out are taking measures to ensure that synthetic media either is labeled as such or it is sort of dealt with in a way that does not censor, going into the spaces around rights, but also does not propagate harm. So some of those things are things that are, that's all I can say for now, Sheila.
Thank you very much, Daktari. I appreciate you for demonstrating that even in the age of AI or artificial superintelligence, lawyers are still required. I like the way you made the presentation with such precision, so thank you very much. There was a question that had been raised, Daktari, which I thought you were best placed to respond as we wait for the panelists to share, for the participants to share questions and comments. A question from Claire Kidombo pertaining risks, okay? In your view, what is the impact of AI on natural resources? It reports that massive amounts of water is needed to cool AI servers. Is there credence to this concern? I think this is now the relationship between AI and the environment. Maybe you can start with that on Daktari as we wait for more questions.
Thank you, Sheila and Claire for that question. Yes, those concerns are real, and the concerns are going to be they are going to be greater around the link between AI, the enabling technology around AI, and its interaction with the environment. When we are getting into the quantum computing space, and of course, post-quantum computing space, because there's a sense in which a lot of energy is required to deal with those things. The beauty about it is that these spaces are all getting intelligent at the end of the day. Whatever is supposed to be a cause of the problem, to an extent, is also providing an ecosystem through which people are being creative around solutions. Quantum computing has not taken big shape because of those concerns, but AI will be significantly better with quantum computing. So at the end of the day, smart technologies are coming up as well to deal with energy consumption and all that. Is it adequate? Maybe not. But is there something being done towards just blending environmental impacts of these technologies that underlie the development of AI, deployment of AI? Yes, a lot is being done there, and I think a lot of smart energies is coming up. Will that help? Maybe to an extent, but as computing gets better, I think it will be better. So thanks.
Daktari, there's another question here from Patrick Auma. Who should control how AI is used and implemented? Who should set the limits? And if I can ride on to that question from Patrick, he's asking whether it's government or private companies. I have a personal question, Daktari. When you talked about information and how AI contributes to the degradation of information, I thought about here in our country, we are looking to have an election next year. And we've heard that in other, why are you sighing? If I finish. We've heard in other countries that AI has contributed in affecting the outcome of elections. So that question that Patrick has asked is very important. Who should control AI and how should it be implemented? And how is the Communication Authority going to safeguard democracy next year in the age of AI or misinformation? Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, for that again. Pretty interesting questions. I'll maybe start with what Patrick has asked. You remember what I mentioned earlier was one of the biggest challenges with AI interaction between AI, government intervention, and all that is the question of who. Yeah. Significantly, there's a lot of AI use, for example, in fintech. Yeah, a lot of it. The central bank regulates, for example, digital lending. Yeah, digital lenders utilize a lot of, AI-assisted models to do some of what they do, including some of them have been punished for by the ODPC of, targeting customers using information without consent. So that space is there. So the big debate I think we should have at the end of the day, and it's a debate we should continuously have, is that it will not be possible for government alone to be the one to control anything in this space. This is the kind of space that is going to be collaborative. It will only work if it is collaborative at the end of the day. And if you realize also, regulators now tend to be talking more of collaborative regulation as opposed to the type of regulation that we are used to, the command and control, where you do, if you don't, we hit you. Regulators are moving from that and into the high levels of generation of collaborative regulation, to having conversations around these things. That would probably bring me to your question on elections next year. The question of elections and misinformation, that's a reality we have, right? It's going to have to take government to strike a balance, between that information getting out there, the extent of damage it can cause. Is it even possible to intervene without breaching human rights in that space? Those are typical considerations that are going to have to be there. Remember, some of these things are already being tested in the courts as we speak. So it's the kind of space that I would expect government to do what it has always done whenever elections are coming up, get into a discussive mode. Let's discuss on how best can we safeguard these things without, intruding into the rights of people to choose based on information they have, whether they want to be misled. You see, there are people who also believe in the right to be misled. Yeah. So it's basically a complicated area, but I think conversations around these things are likely to keep coming. What has happened in the past, even before AI took the shape the advanced shape it has taken, was every election year cycle, you get government getting into a conversation with, for example, the stakeholders around elections, the media, for instance. In the past, I think guidelines have been issued around the publication of some sort of information, just guiding, without necessarily, so that even as that information is put out on platforms, the people putting it out will have dealt with issues to do with the big concern in town, content moderation and all that stuff. It's a very complicated space to tell you government is going to do this or that. But the only assurance that I believe we can put across is that it is not the kind of a space that you're going to expect government to be the sole alpha and omega in terms of intervening and all that. Because the questions remain. Even if you're intervening on what aspect? If those are not addressed, then we still have a problem at the end of the day. Thanks.
Thank you, Daktari. Speaking about the limitation of government being involved, there are two questions here touching on the involvement specifically of one arm of government, the judiciary. There is a question from Nicole Minyonga, and she asks, in light of the recent court's decision striking out an AI-generated pleading, how should advocates balance the use of AI as a helpful tool within their professions and ensure that there's ethical duty to ensure that all court documents meet the required legal standards? So that is an outcome of a matter that was taken to court, and AI-generated pleadings were struck out. And I think a related question is asked by Jane. Jane asks, how can we protect companies or individuals who are testing or learning using AI to solve real problems from being sued, but at the same time not allowing blunted abuse? So people are afraid of the judiciary here.
Yeah, I think, they are. That was an interesting decision. It was interesting, and I think I'll link the two. Interesting in the sense that it is usually easier to go outside and resist something new. Generally, as human beings, we would ordinarily have misgivings about something new. If you recall back in the day, now that talking about the legal space, back in the day, even advertisements online used to be a big thing for lawyers, but you see right now it's been embraced, properly speaking. One thing stands out. Generative AI, like some of those that we use to do documents and all that, there are those that are more advanced. AI can now do websites for you. All that is good, but we should temper its use with a level of responsibility. And responsibility here just means you being responsible in the way you use it as an individual. There are organizations that have put together standards around the ethical use of artificial intelligence, and it's working for them. Much of the university education system, most of the universities today are coming up with guidelines around that space for their students to deal with the use. The use around generative AI should have some level of human intervention. Otherwise, the greatest risk here is the risk of you getting garbage out of the data, either based on your prompts, yeah, or you get biased information that is not fit for your context, yeah. So which you can only point out when you intervene now with the human tools of sites. You can see and read this, and you see and feel it is off. You see, you can edit it out and redo the document. Ideally, these generative tools are supposed to just give you the first thoughts around these things. So it depends. It depends. It depends. But I believe with time, the court system will take up the use of artificial intelligence, yeah, whether it is in their work or whether it is in the manner they interact with their clients, advocates, and litigants and all that. After some time, they will have to have no choice, because that's the space that we're moving into. I hope I've responded to, and I think that the other one was protecting companies. Yes. Now this one I would respond by advocating for sandboxing more. Sandboxing helps in a big way, especially regulatory sandboxing, because this is the platform or the environment that at least gives you an opportunity to address compliance issues, if any, beforehand in a fairly flexible manner that is not your typical licensing regime that you'd go with. It gives you room to, in a way, learn the technology, where the technology is new and it is not clear, instead of rushing as a regulator to say, no, ban that, ban this other one, or keep off that one, keep off this one. You're trying to learn this technology. What does it mean? What is its implications for regulation? Do we need to regulate in the first place? Or if we need to regulate, what components do we need to regulate? Or can it be taken care of by the existing legal regimes that we have? That environment is very good for doing that, so that at the end of the day, if you scale the innovation, then you would have dealt with some of those fears of either the judiciary waiting for you to claw by you because of some risks that are going to materialize out there, or just consumers out here waiting to also claw by you with the class action suits based on risks materializing on them. It's a learning environment that gives the regulator an opportunity to learn a new technology, while at the same time it gives the innovator a room to learn regulation if it is required. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Maybe one last question from John. He has very many questions, but I think you've touched on them in terms of light touch development of regulation, sandboxing. A question he asks is, what concrete enforceable measures are recommended for mitigating AI-specific risks, such as algorithmic bias, deepfakes, and misinformation in Kenya, especially in high-stake areas of the one we talked about, the elections, public service delivery, and the media. I think he's asking about concrete measures to mitigate the risks.
Concrete measures to mitigate the risks. I think taking up, and we are not there yet, to be realistic, and that's why you see a bill here, a bill there, trying to do and deal with an item here, an item there. But you see, concrete measures would have to be a mix of many things, if you ask me. It can start with institutional standards, soft law, for example. Practitioners, basically the softer aspects of regulation that can be taken up at institutional level by companies, by businesses to deal with some of these issues. But at the end of the spectrum, which is something that ideally we should not rush to before we understand the technology properly, is the issue of a hard law, an act of parliament, like we are trying to do, which is okay, but it risks not addressing the fundamentals that we are supposed to be addressing if we have not taken care of learning it properly. So concrete measures to deal with those risks, it will be a blend of many things. At company level, the people who are doing the large language models or the people who are providing those platforms as a service, a number of them, of course, already have something to do with some community rules here and there that deal with some of these issues at the company level. But at the government intervention level, I think it will have to take a lot of learning, regulatory learning, so that we sieve out what is it that we need to deal with, including the risks that are associated with this. Some of these things are already being addressed within other voluntary frameworks. I think there was a mention of AI principles earlier. You may find some of them in professional networks like the Institution for Electrical and Electronic Engineers. You find they have something there. You'll find the ISO people also have some certification programs around practices and controls on some of these to provide assurances on these items. Not so many countries have put together hardcore legislation to deal with AI. And even the ones that have, for example, I think what people are citing right now a lot is the EU AI Act, the European Union Artificial Intelligence Act. And even that act, you realize that it attempts to take a risk-based approach to regulation, as opposed to the other end of the stick that is a bit more complicated, by categorizing risks, and I think that is what the bill that is in the Senate is trying to borrow from, by categorizing risks and categorizing what is to be banned, what is prohibited, and all that. What is acceptable, what is a high risk, and all that, which is a useful discussion to have. It is just that we have to be careful of what is this that is supposed to be prohibited, so that we balance that with the need to also check on human rights and all those other principles around trust and the others. So it will be an array of things, some voluntary, some may not be voluntary. The discussions will have to keep happening. Some will take, as they call them, job bonding or agency threats. Some will take sandboxing. Of course, a lot of it will take consultations because that is the constitutional approach that government is mandated to pursue. So it is more of looking at dropping these things into a soft law area, and over time looking at how to exit them into a regulatory order that can work, that is fit for purpose. Because as I said, no one size fits all in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Daktari. Thumbs up, makofi for Daktari. I think from your presentation, Daktari, what I've picked up is that there are reasons to be optimistic about AI and the deployment of AI. If we can manage the risks, and you spoke at great length about the risks, policy experimentation, sandboxing, and all these things, learning and collaborating, which were all themes that were alluded to by the previous panelists. Now, as we try to close before 4 o'clock, because I know we are at least 15 minutes, we've gone 15 minutes over, maybe you have some closing remarks, Daktari, or maybe you can tell us what is the single most principle that you think should guide Kenya in AI policy or governance going forward. And then we can wrap it up, and then we'll hear from Timea exactly on her closing remarks, and the same point on principles. I know you mentioned Timea, but maybe you can just give us the one. And then Madam Eri will end it for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. The one principle that I think is sort of supposed to be the mother of all is around trust. Yeah, and trust goes hand in hand with safety around use of these frontier technologies, because without that, there's very little that is going to happen to the many others. It's going to affect the other principles, like those that have to do with human rights and all that, significantly. The one thing that I would encourage us to keep on doing is to have these discussions more, but we should do them and encourage a lot of foresighting in this space. Let's build more scenarios. Let's see how those scenarios look like. Let's see what we need to do to intervene in those scenarios, both from the private and the public sector. And that can happen mostly through strategic foresighting mixed up with a lot of experimentation around these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ari. Timea, any closing remarks for us?
Thank you very much. And first of all, thanks for including me in this great conversation. Really, I see there's a bunch of questions in the chat. I think we would be able to go on for 2 more hours here. But just with one thought to close, I think it's collaboration between the public and private sector that we need more of. That includes issues like sandboxing, that includes issues like just sharing information. And this technology moves in such a rapid pace that there is no way that one sector or one actor on its own can make sense of it. So pooling our knowledge together and finding the right way forward together is I think what we need to concentrate on.
Thank you, Timea. Madam Mary Kerema, what should be our one guiding principle in the governance of AI? If you're there, if you're still online, please.
Thank you so much, Sheila. My one thing that I want to close this session with is issues of us being responsible, both as government and both as the citizenry, in ensuring that the AI that we incubate in this country is trusted, inclusive, and it's aligned to our values. So it's just a call that to rally all of us to ensure that we have proper governance to guide us to the right digital future in the use of AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Kerema. That is profound. There's something that you used there that you not said earlier about it being aligned to our values. So I think that's a very good message. And ladies and gentlemen, allow us to close now. You have been amazing participants. Thank you for being so engaged and sending questions through. And before we end, maybe we can give another round of applause to our panelists. And I would encourage you, even as we close, tomorrow ICC is hosting yet another session on AI. This one will be targeted to businesses and corporates. Same time, Shine, if you could kindly share the link if people want to sign in or register for the webinar that is being hosted tomorrow. We welcome you tomorrow. So thank you very much. And also maybe a hand clap for the moderator if she did okay. Thank you
And
guys. Thank
Sheila,
you. Yes.
Sheila, just as you part, I also
Yes.
want to invite every one of us
Yes.
to our Connected Africa. Please come.
Right.
There will be a lot of issues around AI and
Mhm.
more to that, especially the young people. It
Mhm.
will take place from 27th to 30th.
Of March. Is that virtually, Madam, or
April.
April? Sorry, is that virtually or?
No. We'll be having it at Edge. So you
Okay.
can go online, search Connected Africa so that you
Okay.
register. And
Thank
even
you.
from, if we have participants outside Kenya, please, you're encouraged to, because it's Connected Africa.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Spread the word around. Thank you
Yes.
all. Have a good evening. Have a good afternoon, Timea. Thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye. You've been an amazing moderator. Sheila, congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks to you too, guys. Bye.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much.